He had no customers, no product, no office, just a garage, and a way of thinking that most people will never understand. His name is Jeff Bezos, and this is not a story about money. This is a story about the mind and how he trained it to see the world differently than everyone else. Most people make decisions based on what feels safe today. Jeff Bezos makes decisions based on what he will regret when he's 80. He literally invented a mental framework for this, and once you hear it, you'll never make a big decision the same way again.
So it really was a decision that I had to make for myself, and the framework I found, which made the decision incredibly easy, was what I called, which only a nerd would call, a regret minimization framework. So I wanted to project myself forward to age 80 and say, okay, now I'm looking back on my life. I want to have minimized the number of regrets I have. And I knew that when I was 80, I was not going to regret having tried this. I was not going to regret having trying to participate in this thing called the internet that I thought was going to be a really big deal. I knew that if I failed, I wouldn't regret that. But I knew the one thing I might regret is not ever having tried. And I knew that would haunt me every day. And so when I thought about it that way, it was an incredibly easy decision. And I think that's a very good, it's if you can project yourself out to age 80 and sort of think, what will I think at that time? It gets you away from some of the daily pieces of confusion. I left this Wall Street firm in the middle of the year. When you do that, you walk away from your annual bonus. And that's the kind of thing that in the short term can confuse you. But if you think about the long term, then you can really make good life decisions that you won't regret later.
Think about that for a second. He didn't ask himself, is this a good idea? He asked himself, when I'm old, will I wish I had tried? That one shift from short-term fear to long-term clarity is what separated him from every other person on Wall Street who had the same idea and did nothing. But where does a mindset like this come from? Jeff Bezos didn't grow up in Silicon Valley. He grew up on a ranch in Texas. His grandfather, a man named Lawrence Gis, was one of the most influential figures in his life, a man who built things with his hands, who solved problems with patience, not panic. Every summer, young Jeff would work on that ranch, fixing machinery, figuring things out. No Google, no YouTube tutorials, just a problem, and the stubborn belief that there was a solution. And his mother, Jackie, she was 17 when she had him, a teenager. Instead of seeing that as a limitation, she raised a son who believed that circumstances don't define you, only your choices do.
I'd been hearing an ad campaign about smoking. I can't remember the details, but basically the ad said, every puff of a cigarette takes some number of minutes off of your life. When I was satisfied that I'd come up with a reasonable number, I poked my head into the front of the car, tapped my grandmother on the shoulder, and proudly proclaimed, at 2 minutes per puff, you've taken 9 years off of your life. My grandmother burst into tears. I sat in the back seat, didn't know what to do, while my grandmother was crying. My grandfather, who'd been driving in silence, pulled over onto the shoulder of the highway. My grandfather was a highly intelligent, quiet man. He had never said a harsh word to me, and maybe this was to be the first time. My grandfather looked at me, and after a bit of silence, he gently and calmly said, Jeff, one day you'll understand that it's harder to be kind than clever.
By 1994, Jeff Bezos was one of the youngest senior vice presidents at a hedge fund in New York. He had made it, the kind of made it that most people spend their whole lives chasing. And then he threw it all away because he read a statistic. Internet usage was growing at 2,300% per year. 2,300%. While everyone else saw a number, Bezos saw a door, wide open. And he knew that if he didn't walk through it now, someone else would. His boss at the time told him this is a great idea for someone who doesn't already have a great job. Bezos took 48 hours to think about it, and then he drove west, because when you've already decided what matters to you at 80 years old, the answer becomes obvious.
I went to my boss and said to him, you know, I'm going to go do this crazy thing, and I'm going to start this company selling books online. And this is something that I had already been talking to him about in a sort of more general context. But then he said, let's go on a walk. And we went on a 2-hour walk in Central Park in New York City. And the conclusion of that was this, he said, you know, this actually sounds like a really good idea to me. But it sounds like it would be a better idea for somebody who didn't already have a good job. And he convinced me to think about it for 48 hours before making a final decision. And so,
over the next 30 years, Bezos would develop a set of mental principles that became the operating system of both Amazon and himself. Let me walk you through the 3 most powerful ones. Bezos is obsessed with what he calls day one thinking. Day one is the first day of a startup, when you're hungry, creative, and have nothing to lose. Day two, that's when companies get comfortable. They stop innovating, they start maintaining, and then they die slowly. Bezos put a sign outside his office that said simply day one, a reminder every single morning.
Day two is stasis, followed by irrelevance, followed by excruciating, painful decline, followed by death. And that is why it is always day one.
Most leaders want consensus. They wait until everyone agrees before moving. Bezos thought something harder and smarter. If you disagree with a decision, say it clearly. Argue your case with data. But once the team decides, you commit. Fully. No passive resistance. No, I told you so. Because a company that moves fast with an imperfect decision almost always beats a company that moves slow with a perfect one. When Amazon launched Amazon Web Services, cloud computing, Wall Street thought he was insane. Why is a bookstore selling cloud servers? Today, Amazon Web Services generates more profit than the entire retail side of Amazon. Bezos had a rule. If you're doing something truly new, expect to be misunderstood. Use it as a signal, not a warning.
And so if you start to think that way, it changes how you spend your time, how you plan, where you put your energy, and your ability to look around corners gets better. So many things improve if you can take a long term. By the way, it's not natural for humans, so it's a discipline that you have to build. The kind of get rich slowly schemes are not big sellers on infomercials. And so that's something that you have to sort of steel yourself for, discipline, and teach over time. So that's what is Amazon. I would say really it's a collection of principles and it's an approach that we deploy. And
here is what I want you to take away from Jeff Bezos. Not the billions, not the rocket ships, not the headlines. I want you to take away this. He asked himself one question before every major decision in his life. When I'm old, lying in bed, looking back, will I regret not trying? Not will I succeed, not will people think I'm smart, just will I regret not trying? The world rewards the people who are willing to look foolish in the short term for the sake of something they believe in for the long term. You don't need $1 billion to think like Jeff Bezos. You just need to ask yourself better questions. That's the mind that built Amazon. Not money, not luck, not timing. A framework, a question, a commitment to long-term thinking. If this video made you think differently, even for a moment, hit subscribe, because that's what this channel is about. Every week we break down the people who changed the world and extract the mindset that made it possible. I'll see you in the next one.